Nigeria. Glad to have you join us on Newsline. I am Becky Madujemo. I hope you're keeping safe by washing those hands, using your sanitizer, and more importantly, complying with social distancing. Bear in mind that together we can beat COVID-19 by adhering to the rules. Yes, we understand that it's boring staying home all day, all night with the same people. It's enough to drive you up the wall. The good thing, however, is that we are staying far from the virus or not busy spreading it. In addition, the lockdown is bringing family members closer. Or isn't it? A family that allowed us into the privacy of their home will provide the amusing answers. Then we were at the slums of Lagos to check out how the folks are coping with the current rules with regards to personal and public hygiene. The big question is, how challenging is social distancing in a face me, I face you living arrangement? Phew. Now, aside the coronavirus, we have so much grounds of interest to cover, and I urge you to watch the entire package to see them. The news begins now with Elizabeth Omori.
Hello, Becky, and thanks for joining us on the news segment of the program. We now begin. Let's begin with COVID-19 containment. The federal government has directed the cessation of all movements in Lagos and Abuja, the nation's capital, for an initial period of 14 days. The lockdown, which also affects Ogun State due to its proximity to Lagos, begins at 11 p.m. on Monday, the 30th day of March. President Muhammadu Buhari, who gave the directive in a nationwide broadcast, said the measure is aimed at containing the spread of coronavirus pandemic in the country. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
The whole instruments of government are now mobilized to confront what has now become both a health emergency and an economic crisis.
As a nation, President Muhammadu Buhari said Nigeria's response to COVID-19 must be guided, systematic, and professional. And in doing so, he emphasized there is no such thing as overreaction or underreaction, rather the right reaction by critical institutions of government and experts. He said with Lagos and the FCT having the highest number of confirmed cases of coronavirus, cessation of all movements is imperative.
All citizens in these areas are to stay in their homes. Travel to or from other states should be postponed. All businesses and offices within these locations should be fully closed during this period. We will use this containment period to identify, trace, and isolate all individuals that have come into contact with confirmed cases. We will ensure the treatment of confirmed cases while restricting further spread to other states.
The restriction order, he said, does not apply to institutions and individuals on essential services. President Buhari explained that the federal government is fully aware that such measures will cause hardship and inconveniences to many citizens. He was, however, quick to add that with the dreadful situation in other parts of the world, this is a matter of life and death.
We must all see this as our national and patriotic duty to control and contain the spread of this virus. I will therefore ask all of us affected by this order to put aside our personal comfort to safeguard ourselves and fellow human beings. This common enemy can only be controlled if we all come together and obey scientific and medical advice.
President Buhari announced various palliative measures to ease the pains of those whose livelihoods will be affected by the restrictive measures in the coming weeks, while directing the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to develop strategies towards sustaining the school feeding program during this period. The president also ordered the immediate implementation of a 3-month repayment moratorium for all trader money, market money, and farmer money loans.
I have also directed that a similar moratorium be given to all federal government-funded loans issued by the Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, and the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. For the most vulnerable in our society, I have directed that the conditional cash transfers for the next 2 months be paid immediately. Our internally displaced persons will also receive 2 months of food rations in the coming weeks. We also call on all Nigerians to take personal responsibility to support those who are vulnerable within their communities, helping them with whatever they may need.
The federal government, he said, is committed to doing whatever it takes towards confronting COVID-19.
I want to assure you all that government ministries, departments and agencies with a role to play in the outbreak response are working hard to bring this virus under control.
President Muhammadu Buhari thanked all healthcare workers and other essential staff on the front lines of the response against the global pandemic for their dedication and commitment, describing them as true heroes. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And Nigeria is exploring all avenues to contain the coronavirus pandemic. As at Friday, March 28, 2020, a total of 97 cases had been confirmed positive by the NCDC, following 8 new cases reported in Nigeria, 7 in Lagos and 1 in Benue State. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, in its official Twitter handle, confirmed these cases of COVID-19 reported in Nigeria, with 1 fatality. As more cases of coronavirus disease are being reported, the African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases, NTA, Osun State, is working round the clock to test samples for COVID-19. Shegun Lawole reports.
In the last 3 weeks, the African Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases has received not less than 70 samples of COVID-19 for diagnosis from the reported cases in Nigeria. The multi-million-dollar testing center, which is the only facility in West Africa with first-class equipment, is able to understand, apart from diagnosis, the structure of COVID-19, as well as also used to confirm Ebola outbreak in 2014 in Nigeria.
These machines help sequence the first coronavirus in Africa, and that was from the first Nigerian patient, or the first patient in Nigeria, and we did that in 48 hours. And just the only reason why we could do it in 48 hours because we have the skills, we have the technologies, we have the know-how to do this. We did that so quickly. China couldn't do it, Europe couldn't do it, even the US couldn't do it. At least we demonstrated to the world that we could actually just sequence the whole virus in 48 hours. Understanding, the genetic nature of the virus enables you to see what the virus looks like. It enables you to understand, how the virus is transmitted from one person to the other.
Apart from the index case, which was confirmed positive by the center after it was detected in Lagos, a number of other samples have also been confirmed positive at the center at NTA.
So most of the cases are negative, but at least I would say that the very first case that we received, that was the first case in Nigeria. We were able to, not only reconfirm that, but we use that as a way to display, the firepower behind the technology that we have here.
So even if we keep having samples coming in 10s, 20s, we're set for it.
In the meantime, following the confirmed case in Osun, government has closed down all major markets and put a limit on the boarding capacity of commercial transportation, including motorcycles, to contain the spread of the virus.
We are quite aware of how serious this is, and the governor has said that we will treat it with all the seriousness that it requires.
The ban on congregational prayers is also being enforced across Osun State. Shegun Lawole, NTA News.
The Chief Medical Director of the University College Hospital, UCH Ibadan, Professor J.C. Otegbayo, has tested positive for COVID-19. A statement by the CMD, and he and others were exposed to the virus during a 12-man quarterly meeting when one member presented with symptoms of COVID-19. A subsequent test confirmed his infection and he has since gone into isolation. Those he had contact with are also in isolation. Similarly, the Provost and Deputy Provost of the University of Ibadan College of Medicine have tested positive for the coronavirus. They have also gone into isolation. Medical experts urged all Nigerians to follow NCDC guidelines and self-isolate if exposed. Meanwhile, the Comptroller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, Mohammed Babandede, has tested positive to COVID-19. A statement by the Nigeria Immigration Service, PRO, indicates that the CGI returned from an official trip to the United Kingdom and promptly went into self-isolation. It requested to be tested in line with the advisory of health authorities. The result of the test came out positive in spite of his stable condition. The Comptroller General is, however, active in directing affairs of the service online, while the Deputy Comptroller General overseeing administration keeps service activities running within this period to deliver on its mandates. A new grim record has been hit as the number of confirmed corona cases worldwide exceeds 670,000. Joyce Ometu guides us on these latest developments globally.
Cities around the world are almost deserted as measures to tackle the pandemic continue. The death toll globally has now reached nearly 33,000, with more than 10,000 of the number in Italy. There are more than 600,000 confirmed cases worldwide, as the number of recoveries nears 150,000. Africa now records more than 4,000 confirmed cases and nearly 140 deaths, while recovered cases are above 300. Here are the latest updates from Africa. South Africa now has 1,187 cases, the largest number on the continent, and it is now in the third day of a 3-week lockdown. The military there has called up medics in its reserve force to help deal with the outbreak. In Mali, people are voting in long-delayed parliamentary elections a day after the country reported its first death from COVID-19. Zimbabwe and Ghana are set to become the latest countries on the continent to impose full or partial lockdowns. Lastly, only one new case in 10 days has been reported in the city of Wuhan. The city is cautiously reopening after a 2-month quarantine. And that's it from here. We'll bring you more updates as they unfold. I am Joyce Umetu.
Thank you, Joyce. And as nations across the globe and Nigeria grapple with the coronavirus pandemic, state governments in Nigeria have embarked on border closure and enforcement on ban as measures to contain the spread of COVID-19. The Ogun State government says it will close its interstate boundaries and international borders with the Republic of Benin. The closure will be effected by 12 midnight, 30th of March 2020. The borders will be closed for 2 weeks in the first instance. With this restriction order, movement in and out of the state is hereby banned as a further measure to contain the coronavirus pandemic. The statement released by the state government also notes that vehicles conveying personnel involved in essential services such as security agencies, health workers, food and medical items, and petroleum products are exempted from the interstate's restriction. Governor Dakpo Abiodun further stated that lessons from other climes strongly indicates that closure of borders has the potential to drastically reduce the spread, while unrestricted movement portends grave dangers. Similarly, in Abia State, following the recommendation of the state's Interministerial Committee on COVID-19, closure of all the state's land boundaries took effect from 4 a.m. today. A statement by the State's Commissioner for Information, Security Agencies, Traditional Rulers, and Community Youths in the state are to ensure total compliance with this directive and take necessary measures. Security agencies are advised to beef up security to stop those who intend to sneak into the state, either at night or at dawn. Traditional rulers and security agencies should ensure that those identified to have returned from affected states and overseas are confined to their homes in isolation for at least 14 days. Meanwhile, the Anambra State government has shut down the Onitsha Head Bridge in order to contain the spread of coronavirus. The state government will also be closing the interstate boundaries 30th of March 2020, and only vehicles transporting food items and medics will be allowed passage. And Ijoma Peters reports that stranded travelers in Ebonyi state boundaries are crossing the border by foot, contravening the order on movement. In Asaba, Austin Edemudu reports that the border closure by the Delta State government witnessed initial setback due to inadequate enforcement. Still on efforts to contain COVID-19, Ekiti State government has imposed a dawn-to-dusk curfew on the state to curb the spread of the coronavirus. Governor Kayode Fayemi in a broadcast also announced total lockdown at the state borders during the for 14 days. Ayodeji Ogunshaki reports.
Ekiti State having recorded an index case of COVID-19, government has taken steps to curtail further spread. In the broadcast tagged, "We must do more to prevent outbreak in the Ekiti State," the governor noted that the various measures taken so far to prevent community transmission of the disease be consolidated for the safety of all.
We cannot afford a public health crisis. This is in order to prevent the spread of coronavirus in Ekiti State.
The governor, who asked for full cooperation from people, noted that any person who contravenes those regulations shall be liable to a fine or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months or both. Meanwhile, the imposition of the curfew has generated mixed reactions from members of the public.
We need to cooperate with the government in making the policy being effective. But for the self-employed people, the government should have a way of assisting.
Government tries to save us, so what government does is a good thing.
The 14 days curfew is expected to last till Monday, April 13, 2020. From Ado-Ekiti, Ayodeji Ogunshaki, NTA News.
2 weeks after the result of a suspected case of COVID-19 in Katsina State was confirmed negative, another suspected case has been recorded in Bakori local government area of the state. Confirming the second suspected case in a telephone chat, Permanent Secretary in the State Ministry of Health, Dr. Kabir Musa, said the suspected person, who is currently on isolation, was an employee of a woman based in Lagos who was diagnosed with the pandemic. In a swift reaction, the state task force against the spread of COVID-19 has taken the sample of the suspected person for analysis to ascertain his status. In compliance with the FCT administration's advisory on religious gathering, many churches have suspended major Sunday worship services, which usually attract thousands of worshippers. Deborah Micah reports that there were some exceptions who had a run-in with the law.
Usually on a Sunday like this one, this auditorium would have been filled to capacity as members of the church congregate. But the story is different today, as members of the church have to abide by the directive of the FCT administration not to convene.
This is the first time churches in the FCT and indeed some parts of the country are witnessing a situation where they are not allowed to congregate. At the Summit Bible Church, only the technical team of the church were seen streaming the service live.
It's not as if anybody's trying to frustrate the church. I mean, most people are, even the mosques, I hear that mosques are also closed. So I don't think it's a problem for us to comply with the government requirements.
I just broadcasted online to my members in their various houses, and we encourage them to continue to hold house fellowships until the situation improves.
Monitoring compliance at churches in the FCT, the FCT Ministerial Tax Team dispatched worshippers at the Christ Embassy Church located in Jai district of the FCT. The team also arrested the General Overseer of the Jesus Reign Family Church located in Apo district.
We have done what is not appropriate. As we have often tell people, and we re-emphasize it over and over again, on Fridays we shut down some mosques. Go home immediately.
Deborah Micah, NTA News.
Government has continued to implement measures aimed at ensuring compliance with health guidelines for the prevention and control of COVID-19, including the suspension of religious gatherings. Najatu Tijani has the situation report on the level of compliance in various locations across the country.
Many churches in Oka held services this Sunday, contrary to state government directives, although safety measures were in place, reports Udo Okoronko. Similarly, it was business as usual in Abakaliki, where worshippers converged in various churches for Sunday service, reports Neka Uko. In Ekiti State, religious leaders advocated strict compliance with social distancing to curb the spread of the virus, reports Ayodeji Ogunshaki. Meanwhile, the Adamawa State Committee on Containment and Prevention of COVID-19 says it will consider the order banning social gatherings.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says it is working hard to expand testing capacity for COVID-19 in the country. Currently, there are 6 labs in Nigeria with capacity to test for COVID-19, but the agency says it is scaling up to 13 labs in the next 3 weeks. Work at the centers are progressing at Abakaliki, Maiduguri, Kano, Sokoto, Port Harcourt, and Jos. Still on containment of COVID-19, Kano State Government has constituted a 38-member fundraising committee to provide succor to the vulnerable members of the society. Governor Abdullah Umar Ganduje, while inaugurating the committee, said this followed certain restrictions imposed to prevent the spread of COVID-19 to the state. Abdullah Mustafa has details.
Apart from closure of schools and public offices, Kano State Government also announced restriction of movement across its land and air borders to prevent the spread of COVID-19 to the state. While considering other stringent measures amid increased reported cases of the disease in some parts of the country, government is not unmindful of the plights of low-income earners. This informs the constitution of a 38-member fundraising committee as part of palliative measures against the attendant consequences of the situation.
Would be disadvantaged, the downtrodden, the poor of the poorest, the one in the lower ladder of the pyramid, the one who rely on daily income.
With the Vice-Chancellor, Bayero University, Kano, Professor Muhammad Yehuza Bello as chairman and Tajuddin Aminu Dantata as co-chair, members are expected to contact wealthy individuals and corporate organizations on how to support low-income earners and destitutes. Governor Ganduje enjoined people of Kano to fast and pray for an end to the epidemic. In Kano, Abdullah Mustafa, NTA News.
Federal Ministry of Environment has commenced disinfection and decontamination of public places in Nigeria. Areas being disinfected include markets, motor parks, airports, schools, and other high-risk places. The exercise is carried out by the Department of Pollution Control and Environmental Health, as well as Environmental Health Officers Council of Nigeria. A statement issued by the Director Press, Federal Ministry of Environment, Sagir El Mohammed, says that the contamination is part of federal government's strategic plan to contain further spread of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the Federal Ministry of Environment has activated environmental health desk in the 774 local government areas in the country to pursue grassroots advocacy, offer guidance and counseling, disinfect and decontaminate all risk-prone areas. The Director General of the National Youth Service Corps, Brigadier General Shuaibu, has expressed deep appreciation to members of the Corps medical personnel for their unparalleled sacrifices at this hour of the global challenge imposed by the coronavirus pandemic. A statement by the management states that they have been complementing the efforts of the medical teams in their respective states of deployment in fighting the pandemic and stem the spread of the virus. The NYSC management, in solidarity with the nation, is on standby to ensure a hitch-free operation of the isolation centers, which the NYSC orientation camps have been designated for by the federal government. The Director General restates management's commitment to the overall welfare and safety of Corps members, especially the Corps medical personnel who have stood to be counted in this period of trial and urged core members to remain calm as they observe with the highest degree of seriousness the safety measures. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has dissociated itself from a purported letter circulating on social media calling for donations for the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria. A statement signed by Special Advisor, Media and Communications to the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Yunus Tanko Abdullahi, says the activities of fraudsters impersonating the ministry is an attempt to defraud unsuspecting members of the public. The purported letter, which mentioned names of some notable Nigerians, is appealing to Nigerians to give to aid the fight against COVID-19 is fake and a scam. The ministry hereby admonishes Nigerians to disregard the letter. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Jeffrey Onyema, has dispelled a fabricated and malicious report circulating in the media alleging that the two claimed cases of COVID-19 recently reported in Enugu State are the minister and his personal assistant. A statement by the Special Advisor to the Minister on Media, Sarah Sanders, says the minister and his aide were in Abuja at all the material times. Furthermore, the minister is a member of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and all the members were recently tested and all found to be negative. To curb this kind of criminal behavior, the matter has been brought to the attention of law enforcement agencies for investigation, and severe sanctions will be meted to the perpetrators as deterrence for the future. The Inspector General of Police, IGP Mohammed Adamu, has enjoined members of the public to be wary of criminal elements who might explore the emergency situation created by the coronavirus pandemic to increase their criminal activities. A statement by the Force Public Relations Officer, DCP Frank Umba, says the IGP's advice is informed by credible intelligence from Interpol, which suggests that fraudsters are already setting up websites, social media accounts and emails claiming to sell COVID-19 medical products while using the name of prominent companies to ask victims to pay via bank transfer. The police therefore advised Nigerians to avoid opening suspicious emails, ensure they back up and use strong passwords for their social media accounts. They should also ignore suspicious phone calls from people pretending to be in need of cash to treat the purported COVID-19 infection and report such activities to the police. Now to other matters. The troops of Operation Harding Daji have rescued 12 victims, including the district head of Wuya in Zamfara State that was kidnapped last week. A statement by the Acting Director Defense Media Information, Brigadier General Bernard Onyeko, indicates that troops on clearance operations in villages in Bagudu local government area of Zamfara State also killed 9 and arrested 14 suspected bandits. Similarly, in Tuga Hakin in Gusau local government areas of Zamfara State, troops on patrol intercepted 9 suspected bandits and recovered 600 cows and 300 sheep. Brigadier Bernard notes that the recovered animals are in the custody of Operation Harding Daji, awaiting completion of investigation and handover to owners. The Nigerian military says several Boko Haram terrorists have been neutralized and their structures and logistics supplies destroyed in airstrikes executed by the air component of Operation Lafia Doli at Valgande in Sambisa Forest General Area of Borno State. A statement by Acting Director, Defense Media Operations, Brigadier General Bernard Onyeko. The mission was conducted on the 27th of March 2020 under subsidiary Operation Decisive Edge after an ISR aircraft spotted and tracked some terrorists to compounds within the settlement where they resided in some well-developed structures and neutralized, damaging some of their dwellings, some engulfed in flames. The Armed Forces of Nigeria says it will continue to sustain the offensive against the enemies of our nation as several Boko Haram terrorists have been neutralized and their structures and logistics supplies destroyed in airstrikes executed by the air component of Operation Lafia Dole in the Sambisa Forest General Area of Borno State. And now to sports. Tokyo 2020 Olympics to be held in 2021 soon to get new dates, as Amanda Marcus brings us details on sports updates.
Members of the local